always a really good thing. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen podcast. Folks, I've got an amazing guest on the pod today, and I'm so excited. We're going to talk recipes and cookbooks and interesting ways to eat with my very special guest, Linda Tyler. But let me just tell you a little bit about Linda. Linda is a plant-based cooking instructor, a recipe developer, and an amazing writer. She teaches cooking classes for Portland Community College in Oregon, and she offers amazing one-on-one plant-based lifestyle coaching. So if you're interested, we'll share all of her contact information in the show notes and talk about it through the interview. She's published recipes in vegan magazines and websites, articles on animal welfare issues, and is a frequent guest on Chef AJ Live on YouTube, a very fun channel. I've checked it out. She's the author of the plant-based Anti-Inflammatory Cookbook. She's on the video review team for nutritionfacts.org. For more information about Linda, graciousvegan.com. Linda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited, Linda. I have to ask you this question before we go any further. Are you ready to get happy?
I am ready.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you've heard a little bit about Linda. Why don't you fill in the blanks, Linda? Tell the audience maybe a little bit more about you, or some hobbies, some interest, and anything I might have left out.
Sure. Well, this career as a plant-based cooking instructor and a cookbook author is, depending on how you count, my third or fourth incarnation in terms of, where I put most of the hours of my day. So throughout college and grad school, I was a music major and a music history PhD student. And I play the piano. I still play the piano. I play a lot of chamber music now here in Portland, Oregon. So that, I think, was the first one. Then I had a long career in educational assessment, writing, things like the SAT questions and GRE and TOEFL and all those good kinds of admissions tests and music tests I worked on a lot. And then this has been my, latest incarnation. I've always loved cooking since I was a little girl, so I've been cooking all the time. And then I became a vegan in college. I became a vegetarian in college, and so I cooked vegetarian for a long time. Then I became a vegan, and then almost 10 years ago, I heard all about healthy plant-based eating, and that's when I became healthy plant-based in terms of not cooking with processed foods or refined grains or refined sugars, oil. I don't cook with oil. So that's been the most recent way I've transitioned. And so for the last 9-10 years, I've eaten and cooked that way. So my cookbook, the Anti-Inflammatory Cookbook, is is all about that, how plant-based cooking with anti-inflammatory ingredients can be so healthy for you and decrease chronic inflammation. So that's sort of how I got here.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. And I've got a copy of the plant-based anti-inflammatory cookbook. I've looked at it, I've studied it. It's super interesting. I know we have a number of listeners out there who are vegetarian and or vegan and are really just trying to live their best happy diabetic life. So I think when you and I first met up and we talked, I think the term anti-inflammatory is at the heart of your cookbook. So why don't we just start there? What's the easiest way to understand what inflammation is?
Yeah, for me, I did a lot of research on it to try to explain it the best way. And finally, the best way for me to understand it was that inflammation is caused by our immune system doing its job, or in some cases, overdoing its job, or being triggered by things that modern life has put into our bodies. And so it's simply inflammation is simply the result of the immune system at work. So when our immune cells, which are positioned all over our body, when they detect something irregular, they release chemicals that not only call more immune cells to the scene, but they also dilate local blood vessels so that fluids and things can get through to the tissue. They so lots more fluid, lots more blood is there, more immune cells come. Sometimes these chemicals touch our nerve cells, which cause pain, but everything gets kind of swollen and red as the immune cells try to do their work and they try to take care of the invaders. So usually that works fine. If we get a cut, they check for bacteria and they will cause, that's why, you know, cuts tend to swell up and fill up with fluid. That's the immune system doing its job. Or if we have a cold, we get muscle aches and sore throat. That's inflammation caused by
Mm.
the immune cells fighting off the viruses. Even a sunburn is actually inflammation. We've damaged our cells and the immune system tries to help repair those. So we get that inflammation, that swelling and fluid. So that's all the immune system doing its job for the good, but it can also be triggered by plaque that accumulates on our arteries. So the immune system says, I don't like that plaque there. It shouldn't be there, because over the millions of years we evolved, we didn't have much plaque. So
Mm.
now a lot of people have plaque on their arteries from high cholesterol and other problems. And so the immune cells just keep trying and trying and trying to get rid of it, and they can't, but they do swell the arteries and there's more fluid in that tissue. So our arteries are not only compromised by the plaque, but also by the swelling and the inflammation. And unfortunately, body fat, especially the fat that accumulates around our midsection, secretes pro-inflammatory chemicals that then gets the immune system revved up, and the immune system tries to fight off those chemicals, so that obesity and excess weight and inflammation have this dangerous relationship. And unfortunately, you know, our immune system, of course, reacts to smoke. If we smoke, if we have too much stress, cortisone levels go sky high, and usually cortisone helps control our immune system. But if it goes sky high, it's like Chicken Little saying the sky is falling. And pretty soon the immune system says, you've got to be kidding me. I'm going to just, you know, do my job. I'm not
Right.
going to be suppressed by you. So you know, with autoimmune, the conditions, it's the immune system reacting to mistakenly to different tissues in our body or glands or organs, or with allergies, it's reacting to things it shouldn't be reacting to, you know, like cat dander or
Mm-hmm.
dust.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about the immune system. And so the goal is to calm the immune system by taking away a lot of these triggers. And a lot of the triggers can come from diet or the result of an unhealthy diet.
Interesting. I had no idea. And really, your plant-based strategy of eating is there to help with all of that, correct?
Right. And, you know, you mentioned some of your listeners are vegetarian or vegan. And, you know, this is not an all or nothing thing. The more you can eat plants and the more you can eat some of these anti-inflammatory superstars that I talk about, that research
Mm.
shows are extra good at calming inflammation, you know, the more benefit you'll get. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be give up all animal products. Of course, that's how I eat, um, you know, the more you can eat plant-based, the better
Yeah.
chance you'll have.
Okay, so thank you for saying that because so many times people come across as it's all or nothing, right?
Right.
So I think if you can make small changes in the way that you eat, and we, you know, here in the kitchen we talk about the lifestyle way of eating. So if you can create a lifestyle way that's sustainable, that would be a great thing.
Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah,
think you can start if you want to start with snacks. Apples are anti-inflammatory superstars. Cherries, right now, cherries are wonderful.
they
Eat
are.
tons of cherries. I'm starting to pick blueberries out here. Eat lots of berries. You can just pick the things you love from the list of superstars and start with snacks and then start with desserts and
Right.
then there's lots of ways to do it, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow I'm changing everything about my diet. If you want to do it in a slow transition, that's great.
How is I'm going to ask this again, and maybe you've already answered this again, sort of, kind of. This was one of your questions, but I'm just going to ask it. It's a good one. So, Linda, how is inflammation linked to so many chronic diseases?
Yes, yes. So it is. Science in the last 20-25 years has shown over and over again that inflammation is linked to cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, as I mentioned, obesity, some forms of cancer. So there seems to be this common link. Inflammation seems to be a common link. And in fact, people with extra inflammation, like people with autoimmune conditions, are more vulnerable, just percentage wise, they're more vulnerable to these more chronic
Hmm.
conditions. So the link has been shown over and over. Cause and effect is still a little murky. Like, does inflammation cause cardiovascular, or does cardiovascular make you more vulnerable to chronic inflammation? It seems to
Hmm.
be a both and, not an either or, but they're still sort of figuring out those connections. And so, like in the case of type 2 diabetes, if you have a lot of chronic inflammation in your cells, for example, if there's excess weight, that can make cells more insulin resistant. And of course, that is, the type 2 diabetes problem. And so
Right.
type 2 diabetes then also makes for more inflammation. So it's a vicious cycle there. But inflammation definitely affects cells in that way. And
Hmm.
inflammation is so connected to cardiovascular disease that one of the first things doctors do if they think you might have cardiovascular disease or be at risk is they test your inflammation markers with a blood
Hmm.
test. And if you're high on inflammation, they go to the next stage of
Hmm.
seeing where you might have some cardiovascular issues. So
Right.
and unfortunately, there's even a term now called inflammaging, because as we age, we are more vulnerable to chronic inflammation
Hmm.
because our body fat tends to migrate to the middle. So it's that dangerous kind of fat that can release pro-inflammatory chemicals. Also our hormones decrease, our sex hormones decrease, and they are regulators usually of the immune system. So as they decrease, the immune system gets a little more out of control. So even if you don't have a chronic condition, it's important to think about, how can I best control chronic inflammation?
Thank you. That was so well explained. That makes perfect sense. So, how does our diet play a role in inflammation?
Yeah, so it can play a negative or a positive role. So on the negative side, the major culprits in terms of the compounds that can increase our chronic inflammation as they get into the digestive system and the microbiome and the bloodstream. The first one is saturated fat. Of course, that's a reason to really be very careful about the amount of meat and dairy you eat. Cheese is high in saturated fat, other dairy is high. Beef, lamb, the red meats are higher than chicken and the white meats, but still there are saturated fats in a lot of those. There's also saturated fat in a lot of the oils that are used um, in processed foods. So coconut oil, palm oil are very high in saturated fats. So it's a good idea to really watch the saturated fats. They can cause dysbiosis in the microbiome, the gut, and that can tend to lead to leaky gut, which allows bad stuff into the bloodstream
Hmm.
and just causes the immune system to be unhappy. So the immune system, a lot of the immune cells line our gut. And so they don't like it when there's a lot of bad bacteria in our gut. There's also something called endotoxins, and they are toxins that are attached to certain bacteria in meat, especially ground meat, but other meat, other dairy products and such. And endotoxins, if they get into the bloodstream, they really aggravate the immune system. So that's another reason to avoid meat or minimize. And then the third big category are refined sugars and refined grains. And that's another way that type 2 diabetes is connected to inflammation, because if your blood sugar goes up, it causes oxidative processes in your body. And those just tend to injure molecules and atoms and cells, and then the immune system tries to repair everything. So the immune system really gets worked up if there's a lot of oxidation in the body. And if you have high blood sugar, that tends to increase the oxidation. So
Hmm.
those are the three big categories of the things that are not helpful for inflammation, that are pro-inflammatory. And of course, lots of processed food, lots of restaurant food, takeout food,
Yes.
are high in all those things. So, as much as you can cook at home and cook healthy in the ways you talk about, the better. And
Yeah.
then on the plus side, on the anti-inflammatory side, I highlight the ingredients that research has said actually help calm inflammation. So all the dark red, dark purple, black foods like berries and cherries and red apples and eggplants, and even black quinoa, black beans, kidney beans, dark red, red quinoa, all those beautiful, colorful foods are super good. They have anthocyanins in them. And then there are things like garlic and turmeric and ginger that are super anti-inflammatory because of some other chemicals that they have. And then fiber is crucial for controlling inflammation. And I know you must talk about fiber a lot.
Oh, yes.
So beans are so crucial for fiber. And by the way, they give a lot of protein too.
Yep.
And whole grains. And raspberries are right up there in terms of fruit fibers. And so there's lots of high fiber foods. That's great. And cruciferous vegetables also have a special
Yep.
phytonutrient that's great. And
Cauliflower, broccoli, those kinds. Yeah.
that's right. That's exactly right. So these are all grocery store foods that
Right.
research has shown are anti-inflammatory. So I talk about those in that first chapter on inflammation and give a whole list of all the anti-inflammatory superstars.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
was,
yeah,
yeah, I was just going to say those are your superstars, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at those pages as we talk. Um, it's a wealth of information, and it's really similar to the happy diabetic style of eating, a lifestyle way of eating, those kinds of, brightly colored, highly, fruits that have lots of antioxidant properties. I like to
Hmm.
call them nature's rust prohibitor.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I was at a conference many years ago, and I talked a lot about antioxidants, brightly colored foods. And during one of the breaks, someone came up to me, and he was making a joke, but he said, "Hey, chef, I'm all about brightly colored foods, and I'm going to start today." And he showed me his pack of M&Ms.
Ah!
He said, "Now these are brightly colored." But yeah, I
My work
know.
is not done. Yes.
That's exactly right. Well, you've
Right.
listed lots of foods that we should be eating. And again, this is an amazing cookbook that I have in front of me that you've written. The photography is amazing. Again, we'll list where you can get it. Well, you can tell us at the end of the podcast where to get it. It'll be in the show notes, but it's not only a cookbook, it really is a glossary of terms and a really simple to understand system to make sure you're eating the foods that are good for you and will help not only with your diabetes, but help you live a less inflammatory life. Would that
Yes,
be correct?
that's right. Because inflammation affects all parts of our bodies. I mean, there's even, there's evidence for our skin. If we can, decrease chronic inflammation, our skin is healthier.
Yeah.
Even our hair might not turn gray as much. Just all our energy levels because our metabolism is running well. Our muscles, we can, work out and recover more quickly if it's just the good kind of
Hmm.
inflammation that makes our muscles sore, but then
Right.
builds them back up.
Right.
So chronic inflammation just takes a real toll on all parts of the body,
Yeah.
and can lead to actual tissue damage too.
Yeah. Not a good thing.
Right.
Linda, I want to learn about you. So let's talk about eating and the foods that you eat. So, what's a food memory from your, I'm going to ask that again. What's a food memory from your childhood that you cherish? Maybe your earliest food memory or something that a mother or a father or a relative cooked. What do you like to eat and what's that food memory look like?
Yeah, so my mother was a very responsible uh cook for us. It was a traditional household. My dad went to work every day and she went to work after we were, in junior high, but she made a square meal for every meal we ate, except breakfast. I think we had box cereals, but
Yeah.
she even had certain nights like Monday, not Taco Tuesday, Taco Monday we had, and pot roast I think she made on Sundays, so but she always had the main course, which was usually meat, and then she'd have a vegetable, a side vegetable, a side starch, potatoes or something, and then a salad. So she was always great, kind of like a, I don't know when the USDA may have had four parts to the plate, but she did that very well. So, she was a great example of cooking healthy meals for her family, according to the best knowledge she had.
Of
And,
course.
that's a real legacy that my brothers and sisters, we've all taken to heart. So I think that was a great model for me. Now, one of the probably my best kitchen memory is baking with my mother and my sister on
Mm.
Saturdays because Saturday was pizza night. So she would make a simple yeast dough early in the day, and then my sister or I would, pat out the pizza. And then I think we used salami
Of course. Of
instead of
course you did.
pepperoni. And then probably Monterey Jack cheese and not mozzarella, because that was Southern California in the 60s and early
Yeah.
70s. So actually pizza is something I'm still very passionate about because I moved to New Jersey for 30 years. I went to graduate school in New Jersey and didn't leave for 35 years. And of course, New Jersey is in the pizza belt, the East Coast pizza belt,
It sure is.
which is serious about its pizza.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so I was so I learned to make, really good crust that rises beautifully. I learned to make New York style pizza sauce. I learned to use a pizza peel. And
Look at you go. All right. This is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love to cook pizza too. Yeah.
yeah. And I had, some very, I had some I've had my accidents with the peel and the pizza stone, where the pizza goes right to the back of the oven,
Of course.
kind of like a dolly clock, those paintings with the clocks that are going over the edge, or it gets stuck to the peel. That's depressing. So I love pizza, and
Hmm.
maybe it started on Saturdays when I was a girl.
That's awesome. I mean, people on this podcast have heard me 1,000 times talk about my passion for pizza, and it kind of sets people back a little bit because it's a carbohydrate. The crust is
Yeah,
carbohydratey, and
yeah.
people get all freaky about it. But we're not talking about a pizza the size of your steering wheel. right? We're talking about a couple triangle pieces of pizza,
Right.
everything in
Right.
moderation, with
Hmm.
lots of vegetables and
Yes.
yeah.
I use my homemade plant-based ricotta cheese for my cheese or my homemade Parmesan made from cashews.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, the top of the
Yeah.
pizzas. And then I use half whole wheat flour,
Okay.
whole wheat pastry flour, and then the other half I use the 00 fine
Ah.
flour because that really helps it
We
rise.
need to compare
Yeah.
recipes. When we're done, sorry,
Yeah.
listeners at home, we're gonna get off the track for a second.
Right.
I'm gonna send you my pizza recipe, four
Oh,
ingredients.
okay.
You know, it's like a wood-fired style pizza recipe that
Yeah.
I just fall in love with. As a matter of fact, we're gonna make it this week while I'm
Nice.
visiting my kids.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
and I know you love to cook
Yeah.
because when you look at your cookbook, and as soon as you start thumbing through, I'm like saying to myself, okay, this is a passionate person about food and the combinations of food. And
Yeah.
what I loved about your cookbook too is that as I look at the recipes, they're easy to do, they're easy to
Yeah.
follow, they're simple, all the ingredients are readily available. Um, that's what I think makes cooking fun when it's simple like that. So let
Yeah.
me ask, yeah, go ahead.
No,
I'm sorry.
I've gotten some nice emails that way. For the first few months, my cookbook was available in Costco. So I heard from people who may not have been looking for exactly this kind of cookbook, but they picked it up because it was in Costco and it was a good
Right.
price. And they just like, wow, they wrote and said they're easy to make. I've made every
Yeah.
recipe in it. So that was really reaffirming for me that, okay, people who don't know me, haven't made my stuff before, found it
Right.
accessible. That was really good feedback.
And Linda, I'm going to assume you've tested these recipes.
Oh, yeah, I have a team of testers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they help me.
yeah, and I say that only because so many times people grab recipes off the internet that are
Yeah,
not tested or copied and the portions don't work out and why do I have this much left over? It's really frustrating.
it's very
Yeah.
frustrating.
So Linda,
Yes.
what makes you the most proud of your work?
Well, I think what makes me the most proud is I think I'm at this Venn diagram intersection of understanding scientific research and having a passion for cooking. And then if you want to add a third circle, I think even my music fed into my photography. So I think that photography, the passion for cooking, and the passion for what foods science tells us are good for us. I feel like not everybody is at that intersection. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where I live.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I am also a closet musician. I play
Oh,
rock and roll guitar. I played
oh,
guitar since I was 14.
oh my
Pretty much
gosh.
pretty much self-taught.
That's
But I
great.
but I love to intersect just like you. I mean,
Mhm.
I love the balance of artistry and flavor and music. There's just some sort of synergy about, you
Yeah.
know, having a balance in life that makes things really great.
Right. And
Um,
even my career in educational assessment made me, I had to write test questions and review long tests over and over and over and look for mistakes. So I'm really good at catching typos and I'm really good at making things clear and concise
yeah,
and parallel. So I think even that part of my life kind of fed into this, as well as research. There's a lot of
yeah,
research and data, stuff in educational
yeah.
assessment. So I feel
Oh,
like different parts of my life came together here.
it definitely comes across that way, page after page after page. So when we come back, everybody stay tuned. Linda has been so generous to share the recipe of the podcast. And the recipe of the, well, I just won't even tell you. We're going to come back in just a second. Hold on. Stay tuned. Sit back. We will be right back. Okay, that was excellent. Is there anything that you want to add that we didn't talk about?
Oh, I think we've talked about a lot. So just off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anything
Okay,
unless you want to talk about the special recipe.
we're going to do that right now. And I'm going to
Okay.
introduce us. And we're doing the cherry ice cream with raw brownie bits. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are in the kitchen with my good friend Linda, and the recipe of the podcast. Linda, tell everybody what we're making.
So we are making cherry ice cream with raw brownie bits. And in fact, I made some yesterday. And I froze 4 portions in my little half-cup containers. And so I'm going to be enjoying it, not right this minute, but it's a nice recipe
Wow. I
that you can freeze.
and I love the color. You guys, we're Linda and I are on a video call, so I can definitely see it. I can reach out and just about touch it. I would love to eat it. Well,
Yes.
Linda, why don't you just, oh, there you go. Linda's
Yeah.
eating it. No, I think you should. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's part of the fun here. So, Linda, why don't you, and we're going to, I guess we're going to provide the recipe for the listeners, but
Yeah.
why don't you just kind of walk us basically through the process and the ingredients?
Yeah. So if listeners aren't familiar with the term nice cream, that was the term that's been given to ice cream that is not made with any dairy products, but with frozen bananas. If you let bananas get really ripe and then you slice them and freeze them, and then you blend or process that with a little bit of milk, plant-based milk, little bit of vanilla, you have a wonderful ice cream. Soft, it's almost like the texture of soft serve.
Hmm.
And you can put the most common way people do is put cocoa powder in it as well. So it's a chocolate and ice cream. And in this case, actually, I substitute a lot of frozen cherries, which of course are available all year round. So what I do is put a cup and a half of frozen cherries together with one frozen banana and a little bit of non-dairy milk and a little bit of vanilla. And then that I have a new food processor that has a little 4 cup insert. I don't know if you've seen those. It's a Cuisinart that's like 10 or 11 cups, but
Hmm.
it has this little insert. So it works really well for an ice cream, which is this makes about 2 cups.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people love the blender. Some people can make it in their smoothie blender. And then but then to take this up a notch, I make some raw brownies. The main ingredient in the raw brownies are dates. That gives it their texture and their sweetness. And then they also have almond flour, cocoa powder, vanilla extract. And then I use roasted pecans. You can use other nuts and a tiny bit of maple syrup just for cohering things together. So you use the food processor for those raw brownies, pat that into a pan, and then you can kind of crumble off some of them or cut them into tiny squares, cubes, and then just fold them into the cherry and ice cream because cherry and chocolate goes so well together
It's
that
like
it
a
makes us,
marriage. Yeah,
yes, it
it's
makes
amazing.
yes. So it makes a super good combination. And because you have that it feels like an indulgence to have those little bits of the brownie. So it's really a super special dessert. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it looks amazing. I'm gonna post the recipe.
Okay.
We'll have it in the show notes. We'll
Yeah.
have it on my website under your name and given, of course, it's your recipe, so you get all the
Yeah.
credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to try it. It looks absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm not, why aren't I feeling guilty about this?
Right, because cherries are low on the glycemic index, and bananas as a sweetener and dates as a sweetener, those are lower on the glycemic index than sugar.
Hmm.
So, all those things, that's why healthy plant-based eating is like the world's best kept secret, is because it can be so delicious and in a sense not that much harder than regular cooking if you're a seasoned
Right.
cook.
Right.
Once you get the hang of it, once you learn about 10 or 12 ingredients that oh, I can use this. Like I can use, oh, a little bit of tahini makes a salad dressing creamy. I don't need to use oil. Once you
Right.
learn about nutritional yeast for a cheesy flavor, all those things you like, it's really not an infinite list. Once spend like 4 to 6 months cooking this way, it's like, this is not hard. This is
Right.
great. And, almost every ingredient is, healthier than alternatives.
Right. And, we say this a lot here. If you're concerned, reach out to your care team, reach out to your
That's
diabetic
right.
educator, your registered certified dietitian, or your doctor, but get some help to understand. I can tell you, I've reached out to a couple dietitians that I work very closely with and had conversations about this topic before Linda came on the podcast, and they're all thumbs up. They're like going,
Yeah.
it can be part of a diabetic, healthy and happy diabetic style of eating. Well,
Oh,
Linda,
yeah.
yeah, that's a great recipe. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, Linda, when we come back, we're going to play a game. And we're going to play a game with you, which I do with all my guests for fabulous prizes. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to play the rapid fire 4-1-1 round. So stay tuned, everybody. We will be right back.
Okay.
Okay, that's an amazing recipe. You described that really well.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Really good.
This
All right.
isn't going to be hard, is it?
Not at all. And there's no personal, well, there is one personal question, but no, you're going to be great at this.
Okay.
All right. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's time for the rapid fire 4-1-1 game. Linda Tyler is in the podcast booth today. So, Linda, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions, and you simply choose your preference. For example, butter or olive oil, riding a bike or hiking, that kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, here we
Great.
go. Olive oil or coconut oil? Now, before you answer this, I think I know the answer to this. And if you want to take a quick sentence or two and explain why. So, olive oil or coconut oil?
So I myself don't cook with oil because it's a processed food, 100% fat, lots of fat grams and calories. But
Right.
if I chose between olive oil and coconut oil, it would be no contest olive oil.
I would agree 100%. Mango or papaya?
Mango,
Waffles or pancakes?
waffles.
Grilled chicken or grilled fish?
I don't eat either one, and I haven't eaten either one in 44 years.
Okay. Chunky or smooth peanut butter?
Chunky.
Okay, me too. Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day?
Valentine's Day.
Favorite vegetable of all time?
Carrots have always been
Carrots.
my favorite.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Pistachio.
Ooh, I love that. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Superhero or supervillain?
Superhero.
Roller coasters or merry-go-rounds?
Roller coasters.
Awesome. Not me. Okay, and Linda, finally, if you could break bread with anyone, past or present, who would it be? And before you answer, I'll even cook the dinner for you.
Okay. You might be surprised, and I don't know what you would make, but it would be Mozart.
Wow. So, why Mozart?
A couple of reasons. I mean, my dissertation was on Mozart's German operas, so I've, spent a lot of time playing his music, listening to his music, thinking about his composition. The thing that intrigues me most is that he died without a clue that he would be famous.
Mm,
He died in poverty, trying to, rub two nickels together. He always was very clear about his creative vision, but, I don't think he could understand why other people were more popular and other people were more able to get better commissions, better positions. So I've always felt like I would love to tell him, that he's the most popular classical composer of all time, basically.
Yeah,
And then I just also I'm sure you saw Amadeus, the
I
movie or the
did. Yes,
play,
yes.
and they depict him as kind of frivolous
Yeah, a
and
little bumbling
giggly.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
I've always been curious, like, what was he really like? What was his
Yeah,
personality really like? Because his some of his music, like the Requiem and such, is just so amazingly deep and just so profound. It's like,
yeah,
what kind of guy, what kind of human was he
right,
with all that he was able to create? So
right.
I just, and he was a brilliant musician. He could improvise at the drop of a hat. So there's just so many things about him I'm curious about.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Linda, before we let you go, and I really appreciate you spending some time here and giving up your valuable time to hang out with me. It's just been awesome. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so the first place people should go is graciousvegan.com. That's my website, and I have lots of recipes there. So that's a great place to start. I have recipes, but also answers to lots of questions about plant-based cooking and health and such. So that's the best place. And then I'm also on Instagram and Pinterest as well, if that's where people like to hang out, and Facebook too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been a joy having you, Linda, on the podcast. Thank you so much. Um, so excited to share your story. So excited to share your book with the listeners. I'm fired up about this topic because we don't eat enough plant-based foods. We just don't. And
Yeah.
people have heard me talk about this for years. You need to eat more vegetables. You need
Yeah.
to have more plant-based foods in your diet, less cheeseburgers.
That's right. I
You
tell
know,
people go to the produce section and just find things you like and buy
yeah,
it and go home and prep it and have it in your
yeah.
fridge. Yeah.
And knowing what's in your food, I think is critical.
Yes. Yeah.
I bake bread every week. So it's four basic ingredients and that's all there is. And
Yeah.
I know exactly what's in it. And that's
That's right.
for me very satisfying. And again, everything in moderation, right?
Yeah, but I think you're right that there's more and more research about the chemicals that are added to our foods to
Right.
make them delicious, to make their texture delicious, to make them last on the shelves
Right.
and there's just more bad news about what's in that. So home
Yeah.
cooking is where it's at.
I totally agree. That's what we love to talk about in the Happy Diabetic Kitchen.
Yep.
Linda, I'm so excited we got to meet up like this, and thank you for being on the podcast. Will you come back?
I would love to come back anytime. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, Linda. Um, thanks again. Stay tuned, everybody. A few more things when we come back. Okay, Linda, that
Okay.
was exceptional.
Oh,
You did really good. I mean, that